Hello, everyone. Nice to have you here joining us today. And so we're going to clarify a few things. We have a special guest here, Hollie Barnes Spink. And then if you have anything you'd like to mention or ask, please put that in the chat box. And then, Hollie, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Hollie Barnes Spink. I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. This is my sign name, Hollie, and I am the director for the Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which we call ODHH.
Great, thank you for joining us. So before we get going, as you're introducing yourself, let us know about your background, where you grew up, etc.
Where do I even start with that? Well, I was born and raised in Missouri, and I was the only deaf person in my family. All of my other family members were hearing, and nobody knows why I became deaf. I was just born deaf. But my mom exposed me to sign language early on in my life. However, my mom was the only one who could sign. Nobody else in my family signed. So I did learn a lot about lip reading and gesturing with my family. I graduated from a mainstream school with 4 other deaf students. So there were 5 of us in the same program, in the same mainstream program. And then after high school, I went to college. I went to the University of Missouri. I finished my undergraduate and my graduate degrees there. And then my first job, I wanted to go north. I was tired of summers in Missouri. I wanted some colder weather. I wanted to feel that temperature drop. And so I sent in an application to the Wisconsin School for the Deaf, and I got my job there. So I moved to Wisconsin, and I've been here ever since, and I have since settled here. So yeah, I really enjoy Wisconsin. The temperature is just perfect for me. I liked having all 4 seasons. We still have kind of a longer winter, and I like that about it.
Yeah, with the spring and the flowers and the 4 seasons, yeah, that's something to really take in here in the Midwest.
Yes, and I love gardening and flowers and all of those things. Now, I'm wondering, is the garden still at WSD or is it no longer there?
Well, with my position in outreach, so the outreach building, it's kind of taken over, but really our outreach area, we have some yet. Yes, there's some flowers there. WSD kind of takes care of their own, but yeah, we do try to keep it up.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I enjoy gardening because I love looking at the beauty, and I feel like it shares happiness with the world, that everybody can see that. Most people smile or are happy when they see flowers. So that gives me a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us about your job. What are you doing today? What do you do for your job?
So as I mentioned before, I am the director of a state agency called the Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And that is included in the Department of Health Services. And we provide a lot of assistance, education about communication access, accessibility, and making sure that people who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind, those consumers in the community have access to information from the state level. I love the job that I have right now because I get to work with good people, and that really is key. I realized that with my work at WSD, and then I moved to the outreach department, and now my work with ODHH, the number one requirement for a good job is that you have to have good people to work together. You have to have a good team, and that really makes a huge difference in your career, because if you don't enjoy the people who you're working with, and if you can't joke around with each other because you're with each other all day long, 5 days a week, if you don't enjoy being with those people, you don't enjoy your job. A lot of times you'll be like, hurry up, I want to go home. But if you enjoy your job and you enjoy the people that you're working with, time goes fast and you're like, oh my gosh, it's almost time to go home already. So that makes it really teamwork, the team that you work with is just so important, and it really is the key to success in your job. No matter where you work, no matter what you're doing, I feel like you got to have good people surrounding you, and that's really important.
Yeah, and to enjoy when you enjoy yourself, time seems to fly by. If you have to put up with coworkers and your work, it seems to take forever. But
I agree.
providing support services, what kind of age groups are you working with?
We work with everybody from birth to senior citizens, so 0 to 100 or 100 plus even. So we work with everybody.
Now, you used to work at the Wisconsin School for the Deaf, so that was what 0 to 21. And the outreach was like 3 to 21, and so those were their focus in supporting parents, etc. Now you're supporting everybody. That's quite a jump.
Yes, everyone in general.
Is it stressful? I'm sure.
It's challenging, I will say that, but I do enjoy it. And really, most of our work is education, teaching people in the hearing community about deaf people. And that's really our number one priority. So we give tips and tricks for communicating with people who are deaf or hard of hearing, how to work with a person who's deaf blind, why some people who are deaf can speak very fluently and why others may not be able to speak. Some people think that if a deaf person can speak very well, that they don't need an interpreter. But there's a range of communication access that people need. And so we educate the hearing general public about people who are deaf and deaf culture, people who are deaf blind, people who are hard of hearing, all of those topics in general. I really enjoy my job. We also provide a lot of assistance. So for example, if a deaf person is not sure if they qualify for Social Security, let's say, for SSI, they can contact our office, and we have deaf specialists who can sit down and help those people. So they'll sit down with them, try to figure out the system and what they need to go through and figure out if they do qualify and how much money they would receive, etc. So it's really nice for people who are in the deaf community to have that communication access, because they may not have that in the general public. We do have 2 deaf or hard of hearing specialists on our team, and they work with everybody in general. They might work on different issues or topics. For example, if a hearing person calls and says, "Oh, I just think sign language is beautiful. Where can I take sign language classes in my area?" We're happy to provide them with those kinds of resources. Or we might have a parent that calls and says, "Oh, my child is struggling in school and we need to set up an IEP. What do we do?" We can connect them with you guys at the outreach department. And so we have lots of resources that we connect the deaf or hard of hearing or deafblind community or the community in general with resources that they might need. So we may not even be able to support them, but we can refer them to other groups or organizations that can support them. But our number one focus is communication access, because for the deaf community, that is so imperative for all of us to be able to have access to information. One of the things that I really enjoy about my work with the Department of Health Services, their motto is make sure everyone lives their best life. And so that really is ingrained in all of the work that I do with the deaf and hard of hearing deafblind community. I really want them to be able to live their best life. And so that's our work in a nutshell.
I really like that quote, living how to provide. It's not really about what someone has to do to mesh with us, but it's about what we can do to help them live their best life.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, I love that's what are some things that you really enjoy about your job? Some things that you can highlight?
Hmm.
I know it's a tough question.
It is. It is. It's hard to sum it all up. I would say before that I love working with people. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't enjoy the team of people that I work with. I love DHS, the Department of Health Services, and the what we help them with their trainings, and there may be something that I might not be familiar with or might not be as knowledgeable, but they're very open, working with them with their professional development. And it's just a very friendly, very open, really wanting to understand each other. And so I think that makes me less nervous about if I don't know something or I'm not fully skilled in something. I can always go to somebody else and I can get the training that I need. So that's really nice. I love meeting people from all over the state of Wisconsin. You just don't realize the variety of people that are out in our community. I never realized it until I moved to this position, and now I'm out meeting so many people, and there's so many different people and their communication modes and what deafness means to each of them. Everybody's all over the board, but it's just so inspiring to me that we're doing good work and we're serving them well, because it's not a one size fits all for everybody. So we have to really try to find a way that we can provide services for them, and then they can make those to adjust to their lives. And it's never the same answer twice. It's always different. There's always different needs that are coming up. So I really do enjoy that. It keeps me busy.
Right. You keep building your mental library and keep being able to provide resources and building that knowledge. Yeah.
Right, right.
I'm curious though. So in your profession, your work with ODHH, and as you look back in your younger time, what did you think your job would be?
When I was in high school, when I was 16, my mom gave me her old car. And I just thought, oh, right, freedom. But my mom required that I had to pay for my own gas and I had to pay for my own insurance. And so I had a bit of a dilemma. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I needed a job like evenings and weekends. So I worked at a bookstore. Oh, I absolutely loved that job. Growing up, I loved reading and I really engrossed myself in books. And so I didn't realize how much I loved books and reading until I actually worked at that bookstore. And I was responsible for the inventory. So I had to check if there was a book that had run out. I had to order more books so that there was plenty of inventory on the shelves, and making sure that the shelves were clean and orderly, and making sure that the books looked nice, that they weren't cockeyed or upside down and those types of things in the store, and making sure that all the books were in alphabetical order. And I honestly didn't really care for that part of the job, but I did also wash the windows on the front doors, made sure that the books in the display were neat, and any type of decorations that needed to be done monthly were done. So I really enjoyed that job.
So how many books do you think were there at that time?
I'm sorry, Christopher, could you repeat your question, please?
So of all the books that were, how many do you think? A couple hundred, couple thousand books?
I'm so sorry, your picture was freezing. You're asking how many books?
Yeah, how many books do you think were in that bookstore at time? Take a guess.
Hmm. I'd say maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000.
Whoa, that many books, and you had to keep them all in alphabetical order and everything?
Yes, there were rows and shelves of books, multiple rows. And yes, so there were a lot of books and a lot of different categories of books, like history and science and children's stories and picture books and large print books. And yeah, so there were multiple kinds of books.
Wow.
And with that job, I learned how to show up on time. I learned about timeliness and the importance of being on time and staying until your time was over, when your shift was over, staying until that time. And if my boss asked me to do something, I had to do it. no questions asked. If they wanted me to do a task, that was what I had to do. So it was a good learning opportunity for me to do that. Before that, I thought, oh, this is going to be an easy job. I can do whatever I want, but that's not the case at all. It was not something, I was getting paid to do a job, and if I wasn't doing the job correctly, I wasn't getting paid. So, I would get my paycheck and it would be less. And my boss would say, well, you didn't do your job, so you got to do your job. So it was learning the importance of following what the expectations were of my job and doing them.
Yep. So learning and moving on up to where you are today is how you ended, and really that helped you become who you are today as a director. Do you mind sharing a few of the jobs that you have experienced over the years? I know you talked about the bookstore and then a couple others. Expanding on that a little?
Well, sure. So first I started at the bookstore, and then when I was at college, I worked in the mental science lab. And I was an ASL teacher. I was a science tutor for students. I worked at a food store, at a grocery store. What else? Yeah. So I've had several internships as well where I wasn't paid, but the valuable work experience that I got from that, I worked at the School for the Deaf in Missouri, and I was an assistant to the school psychologist there. And so I did filing and paperwork and cleaning and shredding and making telephone calls and scheduling. So I was the assistant to the psychologist there. And then the first real professional job I had was when I worked at Wisconsin School for the Deaf.
Well, you had several hats over the years. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the strength and a weakness that you've had that help you in your job.
One of my strengths, I would say, is that I'm very consistent and I never give up. I don't give up quickly. I work and work and work, and I don't care if I get frustrated. That's all right with me. It just gives me something to really want to roll up my sleeves and keep going until I'm successful. I'm friendly and I'm easy to get along with. So I feel like when I meet people, I'm really easy to talk to. I feel like I'm a really good listener. When people talk to me, I pay attention. I always want to know more about their life experience and their perspectives and what they have to say about their lives. And so I'm always listening to what people are saying and just sharing their experiences. It brings me joy and inspiration to hear their stories. I believe I'm a team player, and that's really important. You have to, when you're working with a team, get along with others and cooperate. Whether you're working on a project, that there has to be good teamwork. You gotta get along and work together on those things. So some of those, I feel like those things that I've mentioned have really helped me advance in my career and become the person I am. But I think the number one and most important is cooperation. I feel like you can't do a job well unless you have good collaboration and cooperation with others. So, and a good relationship with other people. You got to know what they need, and you have to be able to communicate that about yourself as well. So you have to know their story, you have to listen to them, and then once you know those, you can help people and give them the resources or give them the services or what they need. So I think sitting down and listening first is very important. A lot of people are going in 20 different directions and have 50 different million things to say. And I say, just sit down and relax and listen, because you would be surprised how many people will just open up and tell you their story if you just sit and listen to what they have to say. And you can feel so much better about yourself. And I think you can really build their trust too if you can do that. It's so important. One of the things to add on to your question, Christopher, what are my weaknesses? I laugh when you ask me that because one of my weaknesses is that I'm not patient. I'm always like, let's get going, chop chop, let's do this. Let's get this done. You know, I want things done like yesterday. And I'm not always understanding of slow motion type of things. And I think that's ironic because I work for the state, and often things at the state level can take forever. So it's a good test of my patience for, let's say, the past 15 years of my life of working for the state. So I would say that's one of my weaknesses, is that I'm not patient. Um, Let me think, another weakness of mine. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, or I notice that the people around me are having a bad day, I kind of take that personally, and it really affects me personally. And I might be worried about that person because of it. And I feel like I have to take on their burdens or whatever is bringing them down. And that can be stressful for myself. I care so much for people. And so I have to work to take a step back, keep that boundary, keep that distance from whatever's going on in their life, focus on my work, keeping personal life separate from that, and know that I'm not responsible to fix the world. So I think that's hard for me sometimes.
Yeah, really learning to help give them their space and let them take care of themselves. Personal boundaries can be tough. So related to your work, you had to apply for your job, and your job had certain requirements, especially to be the director. I'm sure you had very specific requirements. What were some of those things?
At the director level, there are some requirements. For example, understanding and experiencing the state system and knowing how that works. The state system in general is not easy to navigate. And so understanding how that works. Also, having some experience working with people and people who are in the field of deafness, whether it be teachers, interpreters, anybody in the deafness field in general, and the deaf community, and working with the deaf community, the deafblind community, the interpreting community. Um, Having experience with training and educating others about deaf culture and about sign language and about language deprivation and a variety of topics like that, and raising awareness of some of the basic knowledge of those topics was helpful. Also, I had to have a specific degree that was a positive as well.
All right, thank you. Let's see if I have any. Okay, so you explained a little bit about your, maybe you could delve into this a little bit more. So you have several staff underneath you, and can you explain what that looks like in your team?
Sure. So I have a total of 8 staff who are on the ODHH team, including myself. So there's 8 of us total. We have 2 deaf and hard of hearing specialists, 2 staff interpreters, and we have a program and policy analyst, and a service fund program coordinator, um, and a deaf benefits specialist. So altogether, we have 8 people on our staff. 5 of them are either deaf or hard of hearing, and 3 of them are hearing. 2 of the hearing includes 2 of the interpreters that we have. So they interpret different situations. And then we had our third hearing person is just started. They started in January and they're learning sign language and picking it up along the way. So communication is very easy for all of us. It's nice to have a team. I work with a great team of people.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Now, becoming the director, you're working under the state of Wisconsin. I'm sure there's been some barriers that you've had to navigate, maintaining access for yourself. Has Did you experience any with yourself or your team?
Yes, I would say we have. Actually, many. Just because I'm the director does not mean that life is easy for me by any means. Even included with DHS, some of the communication I've experienced or barriers I've experienced. Using an interpreter, I have to have an interpreter with me, and sometimes my interpreter is not available, so I'll still try to figure out how to communicate with somebody by using gestures or writing back and forth. And DHS as a whole, the Department of Health Services, they don't necessarily know how to communicate with people who are deaf, and so there's some unsure feelings in that, or they're not very good at gesturing or understanding that kind of communication. DHS is a really large animal, if you want to say, and ODHH is a very, very tiny piece of that animal. So, there's lots of offices that we have to remind them, don't forget about ODHH, don't forget about information and having access, and please make sure to include this in American Sign Language, and if you need an interpreter for that video, please remember this. So there's a lot of reminders, and people nowadays still are not used to seeing interpreters or captions even through an entire program, or not used to seeing vlogs even to this day. And so we're having to constantly remind people that access to communication needs to happen for anything that they send out to the community or the public in general. So I think that's a huge challenge that we have, is all those reminders we have to have. But the team themselves, our ODHH team, we are so connected. We don't get worn out. We don't let it bring us down that we have to keep those reminders going. It actually keeps us going that we have to do this, because the important thing, this is the important part of our work, is access, and we're doing all that we can. And we could just say, well, forget it, never mind. But then what about the deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind community? They wouldn't have access to information that's going out, and that's not acceptable to us. So that's why we just keep going, and we're hoping, we always want to make sure, like for press conferences, that there's an interpreter, or we might have a vlog on our website, or we'll have interpreters at a governor's meeting, and those kinds of things. So just every little bit that we can do is helping. You have to start small and take baby steps before, you have to walk before you run.
Yeah, and a lot of students experience barriers even in their education and having access to information, and that you just have taking your advice and continuously asking for that access and being persistent. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and it's like I said before, just because I'm deaf and I have a job with the state government, it does not mean that my life is easy. My job is not a piece of cake by any means. I still experience barriers every day of my life.
Yes, me too. Okay, just looking over my notes. So this is a personal question. So your income that you're earning, learning how to budget and making sure that you have money for your bills, have adequate for that. Is that helped or hindered in your work?
Yeah, excellent question. Let me think about that for a moment. So I always emphasize to people, especially young people who maybe just graduated high school or are getting a start on their life, you may see that your parents have a nice car, they might have a boat or a motorcycle, or they might have all these other things. But that does not mean that you're going to have those same things at this time of your life. When I worked at the bookstore and I was in high school, all I had to do was pay for my car insurance and my gas. But, sometimes my car broke down, or, I was just thrilled to be able to get out and drive around on my own. So, I couldn't afford to own a house or things like that at that time. And even moving on with my life, I got an apartment, and then as I moved up in my career, then I was able to experience and have things that are a little bit more. But living within your means, that is what you want. So if you can only afford this, stay with that. Don't be trying to spend a ton of money, because you're going to be broke all the time. So with my income now, I can live on one income, but understand I have a house, I have 2 vehicles, I have 2 children. So, my husband and I, we both work in order to be able to afford those things. We have to. And we have to make sure that we're budgeting and being smart about our spending. But it has taken us a long time to get to the point where we are today. I've been working for the state for over 15 years. And so you have to remember to give yourself time, have patience. You're not going to be able to go out right away and earn a ton of money and buy all the things you want. Those are things that you're going to build up to in your life. Just like your experience. The more you experience, the more experience you have, the more money you're going to get.
Right. And you have to be motivated to climb the ladder to get up there. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And so it appears we're out of time. So I'll wrap up. Do you have any comments or anything you'd like to share with students or deaf and hard of hearing audience?
When I graduated high school and I went into college, I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was very up in the air for me. And it was kind of stressful as well, because I thought I needed to know what I want to do right now. But my advice to all of you is to take your time and figure out through your life experiences, take different classes, work different jobs. If you have a motivation or you really enjoy doing something, research that and see if you can make a job opportunity out of that. Maybe there's something that you enjoy doing, that there's a field for that. Give yourself time and patience and experience life as a young adult, because that's really the time. I can't be more serious with you. It's going to go by in the blink of an eye. I look back at my 20s and I think, oh my gosh, I enjoyed it so much. I wish I could go back and experience that again, because it seems like that time was so short. So take your time, enjoy life now. Don't worry and be concerned with your future. Focus on the here and now and enjoy what you have here and now. And really look for something that will provide you joy in your life, because if you're doing something that you enjoy, then your life is going to be more enjoyable.
All right. Yes, that sums it up pretty well. Thank you again, Holly, for joining us and letting us interview you today. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for having me.